2022 has been quite the year for movies in general, but especially when it comes to the horror genre, which you could argue has had quite the resurgence this year. Movies ranging from, my god, this is absolutely incredible, please let me just get this, can I bottle this up, can I find a way to drink this down and ingest it and just feel every bit of this movie in my mind, body, and soul, just I love this movie so much, or maybe I can find a way to ingest it and just get it to where it's just running down, it's in my gut, and it's just gonna stay with me forever, because man, when horror movies are great, they're so goddamn incredible. I love horror movies. I absolutely love horror movies. And then there are horror movies that were good and entertaining, and then some that were just merely kind of above average, and then others that were average, and others that disappointed, and then, in the case of this list, movies that were absolutely just a goddamn abomination, where you just want to take the director, the producer, the writers, the cast, the crew, and slap them in the face with a sack of bricks, and then slap them in the face with a sack of wet hammers and say, what the hell were you guys thinking? Movies that just didn't work for one reason or a number of reasons. And oh boy, am I going to have fun talking about this. So let's get to it. I'm John Rentham with my 15 worst horror movies of 2022 list with some honorable mentions. Let me know your worst horror movie choices in the comments, please. I've seen almost 200 movies that were released this year as of this recording. And I decided, since, well, really, horror can't get much worse than this list. It just can't. Now, there have been a lot of great horror movies, and I'm going to talk about that with the 15 best horror movies list, with honorable mentions, of course, but nope. Time to talk about this, and I do want to say also, all the movies that I mentioned on this list, honorable mentions and the top 15, all reviews are on the Real Honest Movie Reviews playlist, so let's crack on with Hunting Souls. I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be, and I don't know why in the world they thought that they were making something grand and epic. The music was ridiculous. The premise, I guess, was okay, but it was like cable access levels of lighting, acting, and, well, everything. This somehow only makes it into the honorable mentions. Maneater, watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. Whoa, hey, that's Trace Atkins eater. Yeah, Trace Atkins played a shark hunter. Somehow, this a movie with Trace Atkins as a shark hunter did not crack the top 15. They, them. I was originally going to put this in the top 15, but then realized there were others that were a lot more shit. This was easily one of the most disappointing movies that I saw. That's another list I did that you can check out. Kevin Bacon in a slasher, with a slasher theme, kind of going back to the original Friday the 13th, except, boy, Blumhouse decided we're going to release this on the cock, and yeah, had this been released in theaters, it would have been laughed out of every theater. This was abysmal, and funny that it had the girl, or, grown-up version of the girl that played the girl in, well, My Girl. That was a lot of talk of girls. The whole point is that she was in this, and even though you wouldn't have necessarily recognized her, this movie was offensive on multiple levels because it didn't make good use of its concept at all, and had a twist you could see coming from about 18 miles away. Terror Trips. By all accounts, this should be number one, but it was very low rent, very low budget, and you could tell the cast had a lot of fun making it. I didn't have a lot of fun watching it because it was maybe 30 minutes stretched into 80. And then Escape the Field. Hey, let's take Shane West, a bunch of people, put him in a cornfield and have him do bad shit and yell and do weird stuff, and then do a weird time warp thing like we're trying to be Stephen King. Yeah, let's do that. The Long Night. People stay at a house, they end up getting targeted by cultists, and that's about it. The Cellar. Also, people staying at a house, and they end up getting targeted by weird stuff because there's an endless, bottomless pit of a cellar in a weird dimension below their house. Maybe you should check on that shit next time. And Uma. Not Uma to Oprah, Oprah to Uma. Great job wasting Sandra Oh, who is incredibly talented, incredibly attractive, and just could make a movie good, and they decided to make Uma shit. Okay. Now we go to the top 15 now. The Seed, a Shudder original with very annoying people vacationing at home, and a weird alien being invades, and everybody's really, they try to make it disgusting with the body horror stuff, and all they end up making it is disgusting from the acting all around it. My God, the acting is terrible, the entire movie is terrible, and the fact that they try to make this all trippy and spoopy and whatever, it ends up being a lot of dog shit. A lot of goddamn dog shit. Shudder usually hits the mark when it comes to original horror, or at least exclusives, and they didn't hit the mark here. This isn't their fault, it was just really bad. Number 14, Unborn. Wait, are you trying to tell me that you won't let me feel our baby kick because you think your uterus is haunted? I didn't say anything else. As a friend of mine called it, the haunted coochie movie. Thank you, by the way. You know who you are. Yeah, that line alone dictates that this should be on there. There are others, as a Tubi original, by the way. I could have put Teardrop on here. I could have put Titanic 666. I could have put Toe, which was really bad. Requiem for a Scream. Unsheltered, but Shelt All You Take. Yeah, Unborn gets put on here because Unborn none of the acting was good in this. I mean, and the sad thing is Unborn had the most potential. Now, the only reason that it's number 14 is that line. That line is terrible and earns it a place on this list, but it also doesn't earn it a place in the top 10. Number 13 is a psychedelic, psychotronic, social commentary, horror attempt, The Scary of 61st. Which technically, I guess, according to release dates, actually came out very, very late last year. And when Shudder got it, I decided I'm going to watch it. The Scary of 61st, I think, was an attempt to be a comedy-inspired horror. And it was terrible. This was absolutely terrible. I don't know what the point of this movie actually was supposed to be. It ended up just making fun of stuff that it didn't even seem in bad taste. It just seemed like it was trying to rip off other movies. It wasted whatever potential that there was. People were trying, I guess. I don't know what they were trying to do, but The Scary 61st is pretty goddamn shit. Number 12, The Invitation. How do you take a movie that looks like it would have belonged in 1997, or maybe had about the same acting level of Queen of the Damned, and actually a cast that was about as dead as the original lead of Queen of the Damned? Boy, this is going well. The Invitation had no right to be out in 2022. The idea, I guess, would have been okay if it had been released years and years ago, but this movie feels out of place this year. And despite a $10 to $15 million budget, it didn't recoup its money. You know why? Because it was shit. PG-13, good Gothic-style horror. In fact, actually, as far as set pieces and everything, it looked fine, but everything was so obvious. Yeah, you could say they gave it away in the trailer. Here's the problem. You could have not seen any trailer. You could have watched this and said, oh, I know exactly where they're going with it. Also, PG-13 horror. You can't do anything with that. Very few PG-13 horror movies actually work because you have to rely on suspense and ingenuity. And you can't rely on that here. Anyway, I could have named Christmas Bloody Christmas on here too, but the sad thing is as bad as that movie was, it still doesn't crack the top 15. Oh wait, it does. Because Christmas Bloody Christmas is number 11. And I had high hopes for this goddamn movie. You know why? Because it was about a killer robot Santa Claus who travels back in time for some reason. 80% of this movie was just people yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling and being incessantly annoying. Don't ask me how that works. But God, Christmas Bloody Christmas. Gee, from the director of Almost Human. I mean, and I'm starting to sense a pattern with this guy. I'm sure that he means well, but this movie did not make good use of its concept. Though, sadly, doesn't even crack the top 10 because you know what does? Where the Scary Things Are. Where the Scary Things Are is number 10. You know why Where the Scary Things Are is up there? Because it's a bunch of stupid goddamn teenagers that have... I don't even know what the heck the deal is because it's like it was trying to be It and it was trying to be like Lord of the Flies or at least like Stand By Me mixed with It with a weird creature that they capture because why not? And then weird horror stuff happens like they're filming it for their web show but then that goes all tits up and the kids are really incredibly annoying and you want all of them to basically just burst into flames. And I mean the characters, I don't mean the actual people, but Where the Scary Things Are shouldn't have annoyed me as much as it did. But my God, this movie was shit. Speaking of shit, number 9, Night's End. Everybody was irritating in this, every goddamn person. It was done via mostly Zoom calls, I assume, because it was either filmed during the pandemic or because nobody wanted to be in the same room as any of these actors. Maybe they just set the camera up and said, hey, move it and we'll edit it because we don't actually want to be around you guys. Knight's End was about a guy that basically lived in his apartment, fresh off a divorce, senses his apartment's haunted, calls upon people to help him, some horror experts or paranormal experts, including one guy that ends up actually summoning and opening the gates of hell, because why wouldn't you? And my God, that ending was some of the worst acting and the worst special effects I've seen this side of the 80s. Good God, Knight's End was really bad. That's why it's in number 9. Number 8, Dashcam. Speaking of incredibly annoying characters, I have no idea who, how the lead actress in this is, actually is in real life. Apparently, I guess she has a band or at least a musical group, and she fancies herself a comedian. Now, maybe she actually is funny. I don't know. Dashcam was just a collection of aggressively annoying characters. How can you root for somebody that's, supposed to be this kind of anti-hero, or somebody like, oh, they're so annoying that you'll just want them to die, but then we don't give you that payoff, because why would we give you that payoff? We can't give you that payoff because that would make too much sense. And Dashcam, for a found footage horror movie, ends up somehow hurting more than it should. And I don't understand how this movie hurts so goddamn much. This was bad. And this was 80 minutes, maybe? And had enough material for 40? And she puts her friends in constant danger, yells at him. She's basically, I assume, the antithesis of everything that she hates, or at least everything everybody hates, because it was taking place during the pandemic. She was all, all right-wing and all this stuff and everything. So we were supposed to make we were supposed to consider her unlikable. But good God, Dashcam was just, I believe it's on Shudder, or no, I think it's on Hulu currently as of this recording. If you really want to try to stomach something, go ahead. It wasn't a good social commentary. It wasn't a good horror movie, and stuff just happened, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to care? No, I don't. And wait, no, I don't care, and wait, no, I don't. And how much longer do I have left? 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Oh, only 30 minutes have passed. I still have almost an hour left of this movie. It was excruciating. However, not as excruciating as number 7, I'm the Firestarter, a twisted Firestarter. Man, this movie made me want to rip my hair out. Not that the original Firestarter with Drew Barrymore was great. In fact, upon rewatching that movie, it was kind of shit. But that looked like Citizen Kane. That looked like a Godfather. That looked like The Godfather Part 2. That looked like every Oscar winner compared to this. Zac Efron is old enough to play a dad. He's also going to be in the new Iron Claw movie that A24 is doing on the Von Erichs. That should be quite good. That is not a horror movie. The Von Erich tragedies are horrifying, but let's get back to this. Firestarter ended up somehow telling more of a it told a backstory on all the stuff that was going on with the mother, the father, the sister, the mother too, and the little girl that set people on fire. It also had an unnecessary part where a cat was set on fire. Now, obviously, not a real cat, but good grief. We could have done without that. I mean, I get why they did it, but come on. I really didn't need to see that. And unfortunately, my favorites list also involves another one that had you may be watching that by the time this posts. But goddamn, I don't like animal violence. I don't like animal violence. See, this cat on here doesn't like animal violence. That's why, if you can tell from the shirt, it would take revenge. The whole thing is Firestarter ended up just being terrible special effects. This was released in theaters and on the cock. I watched it. It dropped way early. I think somebody hit the send button. They're like, let's get this shit out there. And my goodness, Firestarter was bad. Really, really bad. Yeah, and it was horrifying that it got made. I knew it wasn't going to be good, but my goodness. I feel bad because I think the girl that plays, the young Firestarter, twisted Firestarter, is probably going to get not a lot of roles offered to her without a bit of scorn, oh, she was in that. And it's not her fault. The acting was terrible, though. It was really, really terrible. And it was just so uneven. So uneven. It was just unnecessary. Speaking of unnecessary, number 6, Orphan First Kill. Perhaps the plan was to put this out on Paramount Plus and say, okay, we'll get a bunch of people watching it, a lot of watch minutes, We are going to do a limited theatrical run, but we don't care. We took Isabel and de-aged her, despite the fact that she was 12 in the first one, and she's 25 now. Now she looks youthful, I will say that much, but she still looks older, obviously, than she did in the first Orphan, which came out in 2009, which was pretty terrific. I'm not going to say it was great. Upon rewatching it, you actually can wonder why the hell anybody would take that movie seriously, and why nobody would be able to recognize that Esther has issues, but this somehow managed to destroy what little backstory there was and what they could have expanded on. It made Julia Stiles look like a goddamn idiot. It went around its, elbow, around the elbow to get to its wrist, so to speak. I don't even know what the hell that means. It went a long way around to basically just get to the events of the first movie. And the problem is it just completely torpedoed everything that we had heard about Esther growing up and all this and whatever. And there were a few violent parts. But this movie was a mess. Oh, it was from the same person that did Stay Alive. That would explain a lot. I don't even remember the director's name, and I want him banned from Hollywood. At first, you might have thought Orphan First Kill would have been okay, but nope, it ended up being complete dog shit. Speaking of complete dog shit, number 5, What Josiah Saw. Na. Hey, let's take Robert Patrick, let's mix him with a few other people, and let's have a story that's basically all jarring and everything. It tries to come together, but it's obvious where it's going from the beginning. It's ugly, it's dreadful, it isn't very good. It rips off, it cuts off hunks from other movies, and it ends up just being this freaking, amalgamation of bullshit. It ends up being a terrible goddamn Shudder original. And I mean, again, Shudder, they do some good stuff. They didn't here. This was a bad one they shouldn't have picked up. Also, we get a good old-fashioned dash of incest, just to, make it clear that we don't goddamn care about what, about taste or anything. What Josiah Saw, I'll tell you what I wish Josiah would have saw. What Kurt Cobain saw on April 5th, 1994. Bit harsh, don't care. Number 4, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Netflix version. The Netflix sequel. Yep, we're going to retcon this whole thing like they did with Halloween. We're on Halloween in a minute. And we're just going to make it 80 minutes. They made it 80 minutes, and they somehow managed to make it boring. And this was not good. This was not good. This was originally my worst horror movie of the year, and it was only February. Now, when I do my best and worst movies of, 2022 in general, mix horror and everything, this will be on there, so you're going to hear me talk about it there, but God, this is just ugly, terrible. Leatherface, despite being 50 years older, somehow was a superhero. They tried to do more backstory stuff. One guy pisses off the one local there that can fix all their shit, and then, there's a very low body count. They try to have the thing about the lady that survived the first one, and suddenly she's like a Laurie Strode badass. It's just nothing about this made sense, or the point where they did a viral video and Leatherface chopped people up while they were streaming, despite the fact you wouldn't think internet would have worked out there, that there were cell phone issues before, but somehow they can live stream because we need a good gory kill. And then they also hinted they might do a sequel to this, because that's what we need, a sequel to a movie this shit. Number 3, Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Good grief. I know it was filmed during the pandemic, and I know you had to film on sound stages, but you didn't have to make it look like it was on a sound stage. You could have tried, except you didn't, unless you were trying to make a movie that was shit. The opening of this movie with the old couple being targeted by the creeper, that's okay. And everything else after that was terrible. The green screen effects, every bit of special effects work, I assume were done by people probably held at gunpoint. It took me a while to work that one in, because I usually use that analogy, unfortunately, for bad horror movies, but God, Jeepers Creepers Reborn. I mean, it was the first one without Victor Salva. Good. Victor Salva deserves to, rot in a ditch for all I care. Even though I love Jeepers Creepers 1, Victor Salva deserves to rot in a ditch for what he did. Clown House. Read up about Clown House if you want to know about Victor Salva. Jeepers Creepers Reborn, though. Pandemic aside, this movie was completely dreadful, made no sense, and somehow hinted at a possible 5th movie. How this movie could have been a complete misfire after the first, 10 minutes, I will never know. It was terrible. One of my more popular reviews, actually. I got some good feedback on it. But yep, Jeepers Creepers Reborn, number 3. Number 2, Halloween Ends. Oh, goodness me. Where did you go wrong? Halloween 2018, I enjoyed. I'm not going to say it was absolutely perfect, but for the most part, I thought it was a good way to, ignore the sequels, bring it there, and it's just, bring it forward. Michael Myers is hunting Laurie, but not because of the brother-sister dynamic that they introduced in Halloween 2, Electric Hospital Boogaloo. They ignored Halloween H2O. They ignored all that stuff. Halloween H2O actually wasn't that bad. First Halloween in 2018, pretty good. Then the pandemic hit, and they decided instead of putting it on streaming, let's make everybody wait a year for Halloween Kills. They released it in theaters and on the cock, and boy, Halloween Kills is disappointing. But if I thought Halloween Kills was going to be the disappointing entry in this trilogy, ho, 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 Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends. Doing a romance for no goddamn reason. Doing a romance where literally Laurie's daughter and this freaking doofus, it doesn't even look like he could break a piece of paper if you showed him how to do it. If you broke if it was a piece of rice paper, it looked like and the rice paper would hurt him. I'm talking about the character. They made Michael Myers a sewer rat where apparently he was hanging out with Pennywise and Splinter from the Ninja Turtles. It was like 15 ideas put in the opening with the babysitter and a little shit, getting what he got, getting what he fucking deserved. That was, I guess, fine and comedic. The movie is just so laughable, though, and the fact that it advertises itself as a horror movie, this is just terrible. It tries the Season of the Witch, this shit, but including Michael Myers. Here's the thing, though. Season of the Witch at least had Silver Shamrock. This has just the worst fucking characters and the most forced romance, and within 5 minutes they're telling each other they love each other. It's just so weird. And the whole Laurie Michael Myers thing takes a back seat. Yes, I know that Jamie Lee Curtis is at or approaching 70, and Nick Castle, even if Nick Castle played Michael Myers and some of this stuff, he's approaching 80, I think. Fun fact, the original Michael Myers, Nick Castle, directed The Last Starfighter. I know. I can't believe it either. And I also can't believe that Halloween Ends turned out as bad as it was. It was my worst horror movie of the year until number 1, Terrifier 2. Check out my review. This was ugly, abysmal, bloody for no reason. And look, I don't mind gore. I don't mind whatever. I saw the first Terrifier, but the first Terrifier was a crisp 85 minutes that was still a little stretched out, but nevertheless. Terrifier 2 was 138 pissing minutes of bullshit. 250 grand, and man, let me just tell you right now, if they do a Terrifier 3, which they shouldn't, they absolutely should not be allowed to make a Terrifier 3. Put the kibosh on that, somebody buy the rights to it, and then put it on ice so nobody involved in this can make another movie around the Terrifier franchise. Because Art the Clown's a decent idea, but Terrifier 2, you can do gore all you damn well want, but you're just going to make it, if you just make gore for the sake of making gore, all you're going to do is turn off whatever audience you have. Now, I know Terrifier 2 was, please some people. That's fine. I hate it. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm Jonathan. I'll see you soon.